Hey folks, Matt from Art of the Image. Going to work on a photorealistic HDR file. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the same Wagon that we did the hyper realistic or hyper real HDR file with, and we're in Photoshop CS5 here using the HDR Pro, which is a really fantastic addition to Photoshop CS5. You basically don't need to use any of the external plugins anymore. So we've got our 4 exposures selected here that we used in the hyper real HDR image, and we're going to go to the tools right here, Photoshop and HDR merge to HDR Pro. It's going to take a minute to do that. It's going to take each of those files. We're using the raw Nikon NEF files. These are from the Nikon D7000. It's going to place them each on a layer, and it's going to stack them and merge them, and then we will open it in Photoshop for us. So we'll just give it a minute to do that. Obviously it takes a little longer depending on how many files you're working with. We've got 4. It shouldn't take too long here. And there we go. We're in Merge to HDR Pro. We're going to use the default preset of photorealistic. It actually works pretty good with a few tweaks. I'm going to change detail to 65. I'm going to change vibrance to 65. And I'm going to change saturation to 25 here. And I'm not going to change much here, except I think I'm going to play with the exposure a bit to bring it up here. Let's see, because we are a little low on the exposure. I don't really like to use the gamma in this window because I find that it doesn't do a great job of pulling up the mids. We're going to do that in a minute in Camera Raw. So I'm going to go to about 150 on my exposure here. That looks pretty good right there. I'm going to click OK. Now HDR Pro is going to finish the merge, and it's going to put this on one file in Photoshop. So what we're going to do now is close our mini bridge window here so that we can see the file open up below. Sometimes it just takes a minute for it to finish merging that. There we go. And we want to save this, and I'm going to save it as a PSD file so that we have maximum ability to work with this, because I'm not going to push this one a bit, but I may push it later. So instead of just saving it as a JPEG this time, I'm going to save it as a file for PSD, Photoshop Layers file. And we're going to call this one Wagon, and we're going to call this Realistic HDR. So that way we know what we've done. Click Save, and I'm going to close this now because we're going to reopen it in a minute. Okay, so we're going to open this now. We're going to go to Open As, and we're going to reopen the file. So we're going to go into here, into my folder where we've saved it, and we're going to go to where I called it the Wagon, and we want the realistic one that I saved. So there it is right there. We want to make sure we've got Camera Raw selected here in Open As, because we're going to use the Camera Raw editing features. So here we are, popped open in Camera Raw. And what we're going to do is this image, I'm not going to worry too much about the window light because it was a dark room and very bright outside. So to try and recover that window light would be pretty much impossible without doing a layer stacking and some work that way. And I kind of like the way it looks right now anyways. So I'm going to open the fill light a bit in here. I'm going to go to 10 on there, and I'm going to go to 10 on my blacks just to bump that a bit. And actually going to pull the fill light up to 20 once we have the blacks up there. Going to add a little more contrast here. And so we're at 25 for contrast. I'm going to take the clarity up to about 25. That looks good right there. And I don't know if I want to move the vibrance. I don't think I'm going to here. Maybe 5 on the vibrance. And I'm not going to touch the saturation because we're looking for a realistic photo look here. So I'm actually going to come back up here, and I'm going to come back up to my exposure and just touch with this a tad because I want to see where we're at. So I'm at plus 25, and I'm going to turn on. Looks like we're losing a little bit of the highlights on the Wagon, so I'm going to do some recovery on there. And actually, I'm not going to do the recovery. Let's go back to 0, and I think this will look all right. We'll go to recovery to 45. That takes it off the wall. And if you go too much, then you're going to lose a lot of your punch because it lowers your contrast. You can compensate with the blacks, but I'm kind of happy where those are right now. Maybe gonna pull those up. I'm gonna turn off my highlight selector there. Maybe gonna pull my blacks up to 15 there. That looks pretty good. And a bit more fill light to open this up. Go to 30 now. Okay, so now we are gonna open the image in Photoshop from Camera Raw. So this looks pretty good, pretty photorealistic. And one thing I gotta do is the window ledge is sticking out over here, and I wanna fix that. So I'm just using my patch tool, and didn't quite get that. So let's go up here. There we go. And just gonna go into my history because I didn't like how the patch tool worked on that. So I'm gonna select this again, come up here, and didn't do a really great job of it. So we'll go over to the healing brush, and we'll see if we can get it to clone that out there, like right in there. Let's see how it works. Window ledge is still showing up a bit, but not too bad. It kind of just looks now like it's the wall there. Matter of fact, if you didn't know that ledge was there, you wouldn't be looking for it, and it looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to save this file. So I'm going to go save as, and I'm just going to save it as a JPEG now because I'm not going to work on it any longer. And as far as in the raw edit features there. And then what we may want to do with this is this is very realistic without adding any vignetting. So we're going to leave this one at that, and we're not going to add the vignetting. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a high pass filter to this just to sharpen it just a bit. So we're going to clone the layer, Control J on a PC, and I go to filter, and I'm going to go to let's see here, we're going to go to blur, and we are going to, we're going to go to other, high pass, and what we're going to do is we're going to take it all the way to the left so it's completely gray, and we want to pull it back just till we start to see the color come out in the detail there. So it looks like 3 is about going to do it there. So we're going to click OK, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change the blending here on this layer to hard light, and there we go. There's the sharpen, and it looks pretty good. Might actually be a little too much, so we can just lower the opacity here, go to 75%. That looks pretty good right there. So now we're going to save this as that, and I usually just do another file. You don't have to, but I'm going to put high pass just down so that I know this has been sharpened, and I still have my original without the sharpening as well. You could also save that as a PSD if you wanted to keep that layer. But there is the photorealistic look instead of the hyper real look that we did previously on the Fire Wagon. So it looks pretty good, and I'm going to post this again at the end along with the 4 original images that we merged in HDR Pro here in Photoshop CS5, so you can have a look. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be back with some more video posts, some more articles, and we'll keep you up to date with what's going on in the world of photography. Thanks a lot.